What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another Sunday Scan. I hope that you all had a great week and weekend. It has been a very hot market. Things are melting up and there are a lot of opportunities both ways, but especially on the long side. But as we get more extended, we will start to flip bias more towards a lot of mean reversion plays, but we'll get into all that and more in today's scan. So I'm going to run through a bunch of charts that have been in play over the last week. We'll talk about a couple of theme sectors and a few things that might have been helpful to your trading over the last week or couple of weeks. And then later on, I'm excited to bring on Judah, and he's a great person to go over main watches in a market like this, where you basically have a wide net of a lot of different sectors, a lot of things that are running, then consolidating, then looking for that next leg up. And he's mostly long bias, so he's just got a great perspective on the current market that we are in, large caps, small caps, and all of it. So let's get right into it. And the first one that I really want to break down was this PSQH. And so before I get into that one, I need to review UMAC. So UMAC. This was one that ran 2 weeks ago, I think. And this was basically, a drone theme. And then it also had the news that Trump Jr. was getting involved with the company. And so that was like the first one to kind of set the template. And then you had this other one, PSQH, where you basically had a very similar type of, action and response from it. So you had Don Jr., the same guy who was, advising the other company. He announced that he was going to be, it was rumored that he was going to be involved as an advisor with PSQH, and the market had, a very similar reaction to start it. So UMAC had just ran a ton. It had, cleared out all the shorts. It had blown everyone out. It had gone from, the twos or the threes all the way up to the 20s. And then you basically had a nice unwind in that after it ran so far. So I feel like when PSQH first announced that they were having, some kind of involvement, or it was rumored that there was some kind of involvement with Don Jr., you had everyone expecting it to have a UMAC move off the bat. And so, you had this day where it kind of, the news was gapping up in the morning, and then you had everyone all excited thinking this is going to be the one that goes to 15, 20. And then you basically had, all the longs were in there and all the shorts were kind of hands off because they just got, torched in UMAC. And so you basically had a situation where it was long crowded, expecting that same move, and it didn't happen off the open. And so you had a bunch of longs in there and the stock wasn't doing what they thought. And so you had just a big failed follow through and it stayed heavy. And we talked about that in the room of, to kind of expect that after what had just happened with UMAC. And now it got interesting in the second half of the day where it actually, going into this, it was just rumors that Don Jr. was going to be an advisor, but then they actually halted the stock and released a press release making that official. And so it's interesting how the same exact news at two different, points in the stock could react differently, because if that news were confirmed off the bat, it possibly would have had a similar reaction. Everyone is bulled up on it. You have a lot of longs in there, and then, maybe it stalls out and it flushes. But because it was kind of like a rumor, and, you had longs in there, that it flushed, stayed heavy, and then you kind of just had it consolidating in the middle of the day. And then you probably had a lot of longs shaking out of it, and then a lot of shorts gaining confidence and piling into it right down here. And then you just had that news where it caught everyone, a little bit by surprise. And that kind of reset the profile where it was short crowded, the longs had already bailed, and then you had that big move up. So it ended up working out a lot like UMAC, but just in a different way. And the timing was a little bit different, but you can see a very similar type of move, a lot of good range, and then a big failed follow through. And I believe they had an offering too, and then you just had a nice round trip. So good ones to study. So that was UMAC, had the first one and kind of the template, and then that's what kind of got me locked in for the PSQH kind of read on that, where you just have to take into account the current market cycle, things that are similar, things that might be setting a path or a template that people can kind of look to judge, what's the range of anticipation, or what's the move, or what's the long versus short profile of a stock. So those were just a couple of names that I wanted to touch on, looking back over this past week. Okay, the next one that I really wanted to touch on was this PLTR. So Palantir has been a huge runner. We've been following this one for a long time. It got all the way down to like the eights, 7 or 8s in 2022. It looked like the company was really struggling. Maybe it was going to go bust. And then, just slowly recovered over 2023 and especially in 2024 when it went back, retested those prior highs, and now it's just been on a tear. It's been the right environment for this kind of stock where, Palantir is really good at having news flow. And they have a lot of, little deals that happen frequently. And so if you have good momentum in a sector, in a stock, it has the options activity going, it has everything going in its favor, you constantly get these little catalysts that kind of keep it going. And I think that that's a lot of this action that you see down here is when, it's already kind of overextended, but you just have another press release and like 2 days later, they're partnering with someone else. And each one is responding positively, or the market is responding positively to each one of those. So I feel like that can help to kind of keep this up without any major shakeouts along the way. I mean, you have a few dip and rips, but I feel like one of the big tells for when this will set up for a more mean reversion type of trade is when those partnerships are not helping or moving the stock anymore. So you'll have the news flow will be one tell, the extension from the prior trend. We talked about those trend lines for each of those, runs that it's having. It runs in different kind of legs. And then obviously the options activity is a big one for this name too. And we saw on Friday how into the close, you just had people piling into calls into the 75, 6s, 7s, 8s. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see this, gap up towards maybe 80 or so on Monday. And then maybe we have a move similar to a few weeks ago where it gapped up. A lot of that option activity came off and you had like a Monday flush. Or if they just keep buying higher and higher calls, then this is likely to keep going for now. But Palantir has been a huge runner in this market. The next one, and kind of a similar vibe to it, is Soon. So obviously this is a very different company. This is like more of a non-fundamental based company. They have a couple of things, some press releases, and it gets everyone excited. But this is one that has run with the AI theme on and off since literally the very beginning. I remember when the AI sector kind of first started to rip, and you had all those names like, I think it was GFAI, MRAI, POAI, like anything with AI in the name. And then you had, all these names kind of running together. And it was funny because you have the stock AI, which was part of that group, that has been on a tear too. And whether it's still with the AI theme or it's pivoted to another sector that's kind of related to it, you kind of have that old group, the gangs back together again running. And there was another one, GXAI, that was kind of in that basket too. So it's just good to keep that in mind, that this isn't just a name running on its own in a bubble or like in isolation of itself. It's in a sector. It's in with those old runners. And so you have, major range in a lot of these names that have run before. And we're just in a cycle in the market when those names are running again. So, you have the hot theme, you have some news flow. And then with this one, which I feel like a lot of small cap traders aren't super used to, I mean, maybe with this name a little bit, but the option activity is, very significant in a name like this. And we were watching it in the room on Friday. And, you could see that the major option activity was at that 15 level, on the call side. So tons of calls being bought. The stock was going up and it was stubborn. It was not, every time it kind of dipped, it would just kind of float back up to that level, and it ended up closing at 1501. So it's just kind of a good testament that the options activity matters in names like this. And if you are looking for the areas with the most volume, the most open interest, and if you can have someone to kind of help to guide you to see whether that was, things being bought or things being sold, then you can kind of piece together a better view of some of these moves. The next name that I wanted to cover was PRZO. So this is kind of like in the drone theme. It kind of had a liquidity trap to it, and I was following this one on Friday as well. And I didn't want to cover so much with the chart on this one. We can talk about the chart a little bit, but I actually want to talk about the level 2 activity and something that I saw on Friday that I tried to let a few people know my thoughts on it. And that was in, the level 2, when you're looking at basically the bid and the ask, what are people doing in there? And with small caps, there's a lot of games that get played. And so just to kind of frame this, the structure of a normal liquidity trap is you have a big volume day. You can see that down here. stock has, big move up, and then it kind of just consolidates and the volume dries up, and then you're looking for it to kind of creep back to those highs, and you want the volume to come back in. And then, you have shorts in there that don't have the liquidity that they need to get out. And once they are triggered, then they have to basically cover, and that brings the liquidity back in, but it swipes it up really high. And that's kind of like the play of a liquidity trap. And so that's kind of like what I was looking for with this. But then if you look at the level 2, it always scares me a little bit when you're looking at a liquid name or anything like that, and you have people placing big bids or offers, and they're not doing it just to get into the stock. Like in this case, you had a couple of $100,000 dollar or 100,000 share bids in there, which, for a small stock, it's significant and everything, but you just kind of had them peppered through the bid side of the level 2. Just basically they wanted someone to know that there was like going to be a buyer in there, and they're kind of trying to like drum up some attention or some other people to step in to be like, oh, there's big bids in here, so I'm going to jump in and I'm going to trigger this. And that always makes me cautious, because if someone really wants to get in, they could just get filled. Like the liquidity was there. Like you didn't have to sit in there with a couple 100,000 shares of bids right there. So it was someone who was trying to intentionally drum up some demand. And that always makes me cautious, because if it stops moving up and those bids get pulled, then you usually have just a hard flush back down. So I would almost rather see a situation like that with big offers that get swiped rather than, big bids that get pulled. So especially if you're long biased on something like that, it's good to pay attention to the level 2, the box and everything like that, if that's something that you watch. So that was something that caught my attention. I just wanted to touch on that briefly. The next name is DVN. So it's not so much about this name in particular, although this has been in a big downtrend. This is an energy name, but it's more the theme of energy. It's become very split, where you have a lot of the natural gas kind of stocks that are doing pretty well, and then you have some other energy names that are in big downtrends. And if you look at like the worst performing sectors over the last couple of weeks, a lot of these energy names have been kind of in that category as you get into the end of the year and you have some unwinding happening. So not so much like a big trade analysis here, but just to keep in mind that all these sectors in the S&P 500, they take turns. Some of them are running, some of them are fading, and it's just good to be aware of which ones are kind of in what stage of the cycle. Are they more in a bearish trend? Are they more in a bullish trend? Or is it very split, where you have some energy names doing well, like some of the nuclear names and some of the natural gas names, and some of the oil names or some of the other things are not doing as great. And then the last one I want to just kind of cover for the playback, the charts that have been in play, is this UNH. So obviously a tragic incident where one of the executives from the company was fatally shot in, I believe, New York on his way to a conference or something like that. And the stock had a big reaction to it, and it's not so much for the reasons that I think people think it might be. So a lot of people might be thinking, it was an executive. This stock is broken up into a couple different segments of the company. So this particular executive, ran part of the business, not the entire business, but you basically had a big sell-off after this, and I don't think it's just because it lost a leader in the company. I think it's because there was some messaging kind of behind the incident that are going to draw a lot of attention to some of the practices at UNH. So these names, the insurance names, a lot of healthcare names, they get they get praise, they get criticism, and there's a lot of different ways to look at these things. But I think that a lot of these stocks have been unchecked for a long time, where you basically can have all types of business practices kind of be the norm in a sector. And as long as no one's looking at them under a microscope, they can kind of go on and companies can get away with certain things. But when you have an incident like this happen where they think, whoever might have been involved was potentially motivated by some of the practices or anything, I think you're going to have a lot of people do deep dives and be like, what are the actual practices of UNH and companies like it? These healthcare companies, are they, doing things that are a little bit in a gray area? They might be legal and everything, but they might be, super unpopular. And it could be something where if you have a new administration in there, they might look at some of these practices and be like, we're going to change this. This isn't right. Or this is, this is different from what the public's perception wants this to be. And so I think that that's why you're having some of the sell-off in this. And, we're getting up to some resistance here. Maybe it just kind of bounces and this blows over. But I think that that's why a lot of these names are kind of selling off. It's because they're going to be under a microscope now, and people are going to look a lot at their business and their practices, and you could get some either political interference or some other things as a result of that. So I think it's more than about just the incident itself. It's about what are the knock-on effects, and what are people going to be looking at. And so those were the names that I had for the playback, and now I'll get into the names on my main watch. So before I get into that, I'm going to give the disclaimer that neither Judah nor I are financial advisors, and these are not buy or sell recommendations. This is all for informational and educational purposes only. And we'll start with Judah. So Judah, welcome back on Scan, and let's see what you have in the market.
Thank you for having me on, Chris. So yeah, this is my watch list for the week. There's about 10 names on watch. I kind of bunched it up though into larger cap, higher priced continuation names, some delayed reaction type of setups, and then I go lower into liquidity traps or smaller priced, smaller cap type of names and potential continuations and reversals. So getting into it, we got NNE here. One of the cleanest, I think, right now of the nuclear basket, LEU. These now are actually starting to pick back up a little bit. We got OKLO, SMR, LEU. Kind of look like they're finding a little bit of a footing, soaking a little bit now. Kind of look like they are potentially putting in some sort of reversal. I would honestly keep an eye out for the entire basket here because they all are starting to kind of look pretty good at the moment. So I am kind of looking at the entire basket, but the one that has my interest probably the most right now is NNE, just because of how well it held while the others kind of pulled back. It's starting to tighten up. Very big daily chart here. Kind of this little IPO type of cup forming, and yeah, I'm just looking for this 27s build. Any continuation there, I'll look to potentially join, as well as the other ones, LEU, if it could kind of build over these prior highs of 82.50 OKLO, which was, I believe, a recent short. I would look over, this 22 level and SMR. Maybe if 26 could build, then I'd be interested there. Then we have CORZ, which is a kind of AI blockchain infrastructure type of name. This, usually been moving with IREN, WLF, and those type of names. And CORZ is now starting to tighten up, starting to build a little bit up here. Pretty much looking for a 1750 type of breakout into highs and continuation. Bitcoin at the moment trying to reclaim that 100,000 mark, pretty much tightening up and trading around that area. So we'll kind of see what it does from there, but cores will be on watch if we do continue to break through that level. UPST is one that had earnings over here. They announced the offering of convertible notes, and then I believe they also got downgraded here, which gave some pretty decent volume and pull. But this 66 level is clearly supporting, and we're building back. Friday was a great kind of entry day, tightened up a little bit and pivoted through there, but I think it still kind of looks like some sort of bigger picture type of chart. Zooming out a little bit to the weekly over here, we could kind of see that. This is a little similar to Carvana and some other ones that have picked up off the bottom lows, but I still think that this kind of looks pretty decent, regardless of the notes, the pullback, and then kind of started to build back a little bit, and then the downgrade kind of hit it hard, but still soaked that 66s, and now it's kind of building back and perking up. So any continuation, any hold of 76, 75, or build up through the 77, 78s, I'd be interested there. Then we got NVCR, which announced positive top line results from phase 3, and that was the reason for the gap up here. Now we're just maybe starting to find a little bit of a footing here. putting in an inside day. If we could kind of build over 28, then I'll look for, some sort of continuation back into the upside. Then we got PSTG, which I believe is the earnings gap over here. They pretty much beat on revenue, EPS. They guided higher. And now it's just putting in some inside days. I'm looking for some sort of 65, 66 build and continuation. ACRS is one that announced global license agreement with Biosyn, and they also announced an 80 million private placement at the same time, and had some really nice 2 day follow through, or I guess I should say 1 day follow through, and 1 day kind of pivot breakout on the news, and now we're just starting to tighten up. This has been on radar for quite some time now, because it's been holding so well. So, that fours is still the key for me. I still want to see that kind of break and build for another, leg higher. PRCH, one that has been, getting some pretty decent news. They announced reciprocal exchange regulatory approval, a key milestone back here, which was the reason for that, first wave of volume and move, tightened up, then pivoted through a couple of days before announcing their earnings, came back down a little bit, pivoted once again, and then they announced their investor day to highlight 2026 100 million adjusted EBITDA target, and we got that little bit of a pullback, and kind of soaking this 470s key level. If we zoom out, we could kind of see similar to kind of the upstart weekly here, how it's just basing down here, starting to build now over that 470s, and kind of perking back up now to those. I should say it's not day one from the move, but day one since the prior news high, and just looking for that sort of continuation. This was also on morning broadcast Friday, so this technically, it's not really day one, but it would still technically be the day one breakout over that 570 mark. Maybe I'd be using, key levels. Maybe we could get back to those eights if we do. The momentum and volume has been great lately, and yeah, I mean that 570s would be that next key. We could even see back here those key levels. So 570 breakout for continuation. Then we got IDAI, which was a small cap mover, sub $1 name. They had some. They announced the pricing of their $3 million registered offering at 54 cents, which is pretty much where we are at now. 57 cents, not too far off. They also provide strategic update and announcements, but that's not till I believe sometime in January. But the 54-cent offering, not too far off. It's holding around those levels. We're now tightening up. The volume has been huge. I mean, we had 560 million and 370 million volume days back to back. And now we're just drawing up on volume. So any build over 60 cents, I'll look for some sort of continuation over there. MVST has been an amazing one. Pretty much had their earnings on this day here. We pulled back a little bit. I believe this was either on morning broadcast or on scans, and as it broke up through that 65 level, that was of interest, and we just had that wild kind of move, almost pretty much did triple. Now we're coming back down. We'll see if we could kind of hold now at the dollar range and could build it back through there. Then I'd be interested in some sort of continuation over 120, 125. And then the last one, PSQH, Donald Trump Jr. To join the board. That was the volume. They halted it, and then they came out with the official PR after to really refuel that move. And now we're kind of pulling back here into the day one lows. That 360s was key, and I pretty much want to see either it come back there and soak, or if we could just reverse over, I would say, the close, anything over 4. I would look for some sort of reversal and continuation, some sort of liquidity trap type move. And that's pretty much all I got for, or what I got, I should say, for this upcoming week and tomorrow, Monday. So back to you, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judah. Those were great. And now I'm going to get in a couple of my watches, and then we will wrap things up. So the first one that I really have on watch is this IONQ quantum theme. Again, a big part of my style is I like to stick with themes that are in play, that are working, and so that's why you've seen all year I've been focused on the AI names. I've been focused on the crypto names and things like that, because that's where the action is. That's where you have abnormal volume. That's where you have abnormal range. And so I like to focus on names that are in those sectors that are in play, as opposed to just kind of one-offs or random things. It helps me when I'm trading. So IONQ, we talk about these trend lines all the time, just in a very steady channel where it's having normal variance and moves. And so what I'm expecting is for this to start to basically rip through and possibly have a big exhaustion move or candle over the course of a day or over the course of a couple of days. And so I'm long biased on IONQ until it has that blow off move, and then I will flip my bias for more of a mean reversion. But you can see just very steady in a channel. You can see the wicks on the bottom, so it's had plenty of times to shake people out and just keeps building. And you can see this consistent volume too. That's usually a sign that you might have funds or other things that have steady bids in there looking to soak dips, looking to get this higher. And again, this is the fundamentals don't really play a huge part in this. Yes, you have some kind of case for it. Yes, a lot of the companies might have something going for them. They're all overvalued. They're all, it doesn't matter. It's just a sector that's in play. You have what companies are people able to play these with, and then they basically consolidate, they run, they have moves higher, then they have an eventual exhaustion move. And then when you have news or something else comes along that gets people's attention, then it shifts. But for now, the quantum theme is in play, and so do not fight that. In my opinion, just wait for your spots. If you're more short biased, wait for those overextensions or failed follow through. And if you're long biased, wait for good times when you're having those dips soaked and then breaking out to new ranges. And I think that we're coming up to more of a big push out of this channel, and then I'll flip my bias to more mean reversion after that move is done. So this will be on watch for calls. The next name, RGTI, same kind of deal. This is, it's a stupid analogy, but when SMCI and NVIDIA were running, you had two names in the same sector, but they had different volatility profiles and different sizes. And so NVIDIA was much more of a steady, move up, run higher, kind of like how IONQ is. And then RGTI is much more like the SMCI type, where it has a lot bigger, spikes, a lot bigger dips along the way. So it's harder for a long to potentially hold some of this, as it's going up to, 350 and back down to 2 and then everything. So some of these names have different personalities. And so while IONQ has a much more steady, like NVIDIA type of personality to it, I'm not comparing the stocks at all on a fundamental level. I'm comparing them on how they move and the personality along the way. And then RGTI is more like a big mover that has big flushes. So it's just good to keep that in mind, whether someone's long biased or short biased, to kind of get a feel for the personality of the stock. And then AVGO, so Avgo, they had some positive news. There was some stuff with Apple extending some deals, partnerships, doing some things. So Avgo was a part of that. And so I'm looking for a move higher to basically break out of some of this recent consolidation. And then, in the AI or the chip or the semiconductor sector, you've had a lot of, winners and losers now, where you have, I'll get into another name like AMD, that's relative weakness, that's not doing well. And then you have other names like AVGO that are doing pretty well. They're holding up and still keeping that sector going. So a lot of these sectors moves are starting to split into more winners and losers rather than just a blanket, everything's going up. So AVGO is on watch. I think we could have a move towards 200 in the next week or two. So that will be on watch for me for calls. The next name, AMD, the exact opposite, where this has had more relative weakness. They also had a catalyst as well. And so it's just kind of like the flip side of the coin. So if we get into next week and chips or AI names are really weak, then AMD will be a go-to for the downside. And if chips are neutral or if they are strong, then AVGO will be a name that I look at for upside. So it's just good to have, two sets of watches for the sector trades, for the market, for the, everything in general. And that helps you to be more prepared. And then the final name, and probably my favorite, is Tesla, for just this big move. I've talked about this a lot over the last year, how especially after the election and everything, you have these rogue wave situations where you just have so many things come together that puts it in a favorable position, and you have a stock with a personality that has big moves. Like we were talking about with RGTI, how some stocks have just these massive moves up, massive moves down, and makes them hard to hold. Tesla is one of those names, so just like SMCI, big moves up, big moves down along the way. So it's good to fade kind of like the extremes or the edges on some of these. And then, as you get into these breakouts, that they can go quite far. You look at, breakouts along the way, and this stock has a history of having big moves. So I think that we could be in a mini situation kind of like this, where it's consolidated a bit and then we have a big move higher. And I think that we're going to push to new all-time highs before the end of the year, most likely, in my opinion. So those are really the names that I have on watch for the week, and those were the ones that I wanted to cover. So lots to chew on this week, a lot of different names, and a big thank you to Judah for providing those main watches as well. And then a big welcome to all the new members. We had a flood of people come in for our Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals, and so we're very happy to have you in IU. We're getting tons of great feedback, and we have people who are helping the newer members kind of get onboarded and get familiar with the lingo and the culture and everything like that. And it's going to make the process a lot more seamless to integrate people into a great community like Investors Underground. So that's all from me this week. The final reminder is that we have a new Trading Takes episode that just dropped, and Sam did an episode with Tim Sykes, so you definitely want to go see that. It's going to be a very fascinating episode. So that's it for me. Thank you again to Judah, and I hope that everyone has a great week ahead. Thank you everyone for watching. If you want to trade live alongside me and other members of the Investors Underground community, then check out investorsunderground.com to see if becoming a member is the right decision for you. They have some of the best technology and a lot of great members there, all looking to help other people improve their trading. And also check out Investors Underground content on YouTube and Twitter. Thank you.